Hey everyone, welcome back to the Bay State Golf Podcast. I am Sean Mulia. Today's topic is 5 plus 1 more golf courses that I think have some great potential in the state of Massachusetts. These are all public golf courses. I say 5 plus 1 because the 6th one is a little bit of a bonus from a trip I took out to Western Mass last year. Before we jump into these golf courses, just a very quick plug. Please subscribe if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. There is also a YouTube channel that goes along with it. And this podcast will have some videos and pictures of these different golf courses to give you a sense of why they have some potential. Also, I have a newsletter that I send out a couple times a week. Every Friday is a free newsletter. And if you would like to be a supporter or founder of the newsletter, you get a couple extra newsletters during the course of the week. Early course reviews. So when I play a golf course, I post my review there with some additional thoughts and some additional pictures. And the premium subscribers get those first before they show up on Instagram a little bit later. So if you'd like to subscribe to that, whether it's the free one or you want to support my work, you can go to baystateGolf.beehiiv.com. Beehiiv is BEEHIIV.com. Sign up and subscribe to that newsletter. I would love to see you over there in that little corner of the internet as well. All right, let's get to these golf courses that I have kind of thought about a little bit. I think they have some potential for different reasons for each of them. This is not a full list. This might be a little series that I put together throughout the winter as I'm not playing golf and thinking a lot about the golf courses that I've played. I want to start with a place that I've played a bunch. We're going to go to Stow, Massachusetts, and we're going to talk a little bit about Butternut Farm. Butternut Farm has some pretty cool land, has some interesting features, a big double green, one of the longest par 5s in the state. The 10th hole has some good par 3s over the course of the round. The routing is a little odd with potential golf courses. And talking about potential, the routing is a tough thing to think about because you're pretty much stuck with the routing that you have unless you want to make some big changes. But that's not what this is about. This is about little things that a golf course could potentially do just to get a little bit better. Butternut has a very interesting little dynamic in the town of Stow as well. There's a bunch of golf in Stow. There's Stow Acres basically right next door. They share a property line with that golf course. And Stow North is closing 9 of its holes. So there's a little bit of a market for people who might be looking for 18-hole golf. And with Stow North gone as just a 9-holer pretty soon in the future, Stow South is still 18 holes. Butternut now has a little bit of a different maybe market place to try to grab some people's attention. The biggest issue with Butternut, and this is not a surprise to anyone who has played there, is it is just far too narrow a golf course. The trees and the tree lines and the corridors have kind of encroached on a lot of the golf holes. There's some tee boxes that you can't even really get to or access anymore because it is too narrow a chute to come out, and it's just not even playable from some certain tee boxes. So that is kind of the big part of Butternut that it wouldn't be a big change. I'm not talking about taking a ton of trees out, but it is over-treed and the trees just overhanging a lot of the holes. Specifically kind of in the middle of the round. You've got some bowling alley golf, and it could be a really good spot to go and play golf if there was just a little bit more space to play. It's fall right now as I'm talking, late fall, and I've never played there in the fall. I'd imagine it is a complete nightmare with the amount of leaves that are probably on the ground and in the woods as you're trying to find your golf ball. But Butternut Farm has a cool, pretty good routing, some funky spots, very good par 3s, a really great, challenging par 5 10th. Like I said, one of the longest holes. When I was growing up, that was always one of those holes I loved to try to play. You're hitting like driver, another long iron or a hybrid, and then a short iron in. I mean, you've got to really steer your ball in that hole to have a look at birdie. There's a double green, a few cool green complexes that I think are pretty good. But overall, good golf course, tons of potential, and now an opportunity in Stow with 9 holes getting closed at Stow North that they might find some more business with folks looking for 18 holes of golf to play. Next one is a 9-holer that I played a lot growing up. I played Butternut a bunch growing up in Acton. I was a junior member at Maynard Golf Course, which back then was known as Maynard Country Club. It was still a public golf course. I think junior memberships were $300, and that's how I learned how to play golf on a golf course, was at Maynard. Maynard used to be a par 34 when I played it back in the mid 90s as a middle schooler. I'm not exactly sure what year, but they built a par 5. They lengthened the second hole, which was like a cool par 4 with a green that sat on, had a creek running across it. And I think they just wanted this. It was kind of at the time when par 70 was a desired number on a scorecard. Par 68 was a little bit, just not as sexy. Now par 68 wouldn't bother anybody, and they'd love to go play a golf course that's a par 68 or a par 34 for 9. But they turned it into a par 5. First thing I would do as a potential change is just go back to making it a par 4. They just put a green way back in the trees, super narrow. The layup is terrible. The third shot, if you don't hit a good layup, is impossible. Just really narrow. You're playing up a hill. I remember that being a really interesting par 4 because of where the green site was and a creek running across it. It was a hard second shot, and one of the better par 4s of the bunch. The course doesn't have a par 5 if you get rid of that par 5. Once again, I don't think that matters anymore. I think it mattered more in the early 2000s when, people were worried about par and length and just hitting a certain number on the scorecard. I think that matters a lot less now. So that's one thing I would change. The golf course just has become tired. I went in, I played there as my 100th course on my quest. I kind of saved it for that 100th day. It was a rainy, crummy day, which was kind of a bummer. I'd like to go back and play it again, and I should go back and play it again. But the clubhouse is kind of tired. It's used by the town for some like senior citizen events and stuff. So when it's not being used by them, it was dark. All the lights were off. The bar was closed. So it's one of those places that have had a little bit of life with its location, as far as a 9-hole course in Maynard would attract some people to play public golf. And the golf course, just at face value, is interesting. There are a bunch of downhill shots, a bunch of uphill shots. The par 3s, the 3rd hole and the 6th hole, are both very challenging. The 6th hole is green for the length of the hole it is maybe a little too small and a little too severe, but those 2 holes are very, very good. You can kind of let it rip and hit driver in a bunch of spots. There's a couple holes where you've got blind tee shots. 7 is a hard dogleg left. 8's you hitting your tee shot down a hill. There's a creek that runs across. You're hitting into a green that's kind of sitting at the base of a little hill. So just some good golf. It's a place I know like the back of my hand, having played it tons of times, and going back last summer and seeing it, or last May and seeing it in 2023. I realized this is a place that as far as potential goes, a little bit of money, a little bit of care could go a long way at Maynard, and it would be a popular place for people to go and play some golf. It's near and dear to my heart. It's a place I really like. And I wish it had just a little bit more attention, and take that second hole, just make it a par 4 again. We don't need par 5s, and take whatever you lose from that par 5 and make it like a little short area practice spot. Let people go back, and you could have some junior stuff back there, because you could certainly use enough space. It's about 120 yards of space. So that would be what I would do at Maynard if you gave me a magic wand or a ton of money, and I could buy it and make any changes I wanted. We're going to go to Stow South. And this is another one. I talked about Stow North turning into 9 holes. I think Stow South has now that they have 9 fewer holes to look after, Stow South drives me crazy, because there are just so many holes that are hindered by, again, kind of like Butternut, overhanging trees, overgrowth. There's some really bad, hard dogleg lefts. And Dogleg writes, 15th hole is kind of a train wreck. If you trim down some trees, you could let people kind of cut the corner a little bit. The 16th hole is another one, which could be a really, really cool hole given the blind second shot that you have in. Accessing the left side of that fairway gives you a better look at the green, but it's all blocked off by trees off the tee. So there's just like it's another place. The bunkers are a little bit worn out. But as far as just shot value and some good holes, it's definitely a place that just now that they only have 27 holes to keep up, that 18 holes at Stow South could be a good focus and we could see it improve. One thing they are doing, which I don't love, is they are taking, if you've played Stow South, they're taking the 10th hole, which is a par 5, and they're basically taking the 200 yards, first 200 yards of the 10th hole, 250 yards, and making it a driving range. And they're moving the 10th tee box up and to the right and turning it into a par 4. It's not going to be a good par 4, just with the way the land works. And there's a huge slope that every ball is going to end up in the same place off the tee box for the most part, 90% of shots. That's one thing they're doing to make up for the lost driving range, that they're also giving the driving range to just kind of letting it grow back. That was part of the deal with the town. So that range will be gone. They'll build a new range and they're going to change the 10th hole. Not really crazy about that. That might harm the course a little bit, and it'll make it a par 71 or a par 70. I can't remember off the top of my head. I don't have the scorecard in front of me, but another place just a little overgrown, a little bit of TLC just on the conditioning. The greens are pretty good. A lot of slopes to them. There's some good little sections of the golf course, but from above, overhead, you can kind of see it's very sectioned off as a golf course, with trees just kind of lining everywhere and making some holes just not harder than they need to be, but just a little bit confusing. So Stow South, here's to a little bit more attention to Stow South as Stow North closes up and becomes 9 holes. Fourth one, a course that I think a lot of people would agree with me on, and a place that kind of makes people angry as far as the work that's been done to it and how poorly it's been kind of kept up since then. Ponkapoag, course number 1 in Canton, Mass. Ponkapoag has 36 holes. Ponkapoag, course number 1, saw a $5 million renovation rehab done. It reopened in 2018 after being closed for a handful of years. The articles I read, it was closed for 4 years. Just drainage issues, routing issues, and they kind of went in and spent a ton of money because it's a really good golf course. It has phenomenal potential, and it just hasn't met it. And it's back to, from what I've heard from people, what it was 12, 15 years ago, where any sort of rain makes it really, really sopping wet and unplayable in places. A lot of tree growth, bunkers are in terrible shape, greens are in terrible shape. The conditioning is just not good. I play Ponkapoag every year in November in a kind of charity scramble, 4-club scramble. It's a blast just because you're not connected to any sort of score or worried about a lot of things. You're just out with your buddies in some colder weather playing golf. Really one of the last times you kind of get to play golf over the course of the year. So it's a place that has it attributes Donald Ross to some of its architecture. I'm not sure how much is still there, how much has changed with some of the rerouting that they had to do over the last, the work that they did a decade ago. But to put that much money into it and then to not really feed the beast and continue to just keep it up is a shame. Course number 2 is completely gone. And that's another golf course that if it was a 36-hole facility outside of the city, fully public, that was cared for, with the way golf is going right now, it would be really tough not to want to go play it. And right now, Ponkapoag is not a place, if I've got an afternoon free, that even crosses my mind as a place that I'd want to go play. And that's not because I've checked it off on the quest. There's places that I'm always willing to go back and play again if I have time and I want to go play a place. Ponkapoag is not that. And for that area, with Granite Links having their 27 holes and people paying $160 to play there as a public golfer, and so people are thirsty and hungry for good golf, or at least thirsty and hungry for golf in the case of Granite Links. Not a place I particularly love, but Ponkapoag has all of this opportunity and all of this great land, some good golf holes, and I feel like it's been squandered, and the amount of potential that that place has is super high. So here's to either the town or the state figuring out a way to make that place work, because it could be really, really good and one of the better public golf courses in the area. And when you look at how busy George Wright is and how busy Franklin Park is and how busy Granite Links is, there is a thirst and a hunger for golf kind of on that side of the city, and people would drive through the city to get to it. If it was in any sort of good shape, I think it would be one of the better places to play golf. Unfortunately, right now, it is most certainly not, and that's a shame. The fifth course I'm putting on this list is one that I played very recently, about a week and a half ago as I record this, and that is Whaling City in New Bedford, Massachusetts. I showed up to Whaling City having zero expectations. I've heard that it was a dog track. I like to call those places dive bars, just that sticky floor, crap on the walls. There's a couple, you get a good cold beer, but that's about all you're going to get. I thought Whaling City was a little better than that, and the golf was relatively interesting. It's pretty hard, and it's hard because tee shots are difficult. Played it on during this really dry spell throughout this fall. I mean, we've got wildfires in Massachusetts, and people just worried about the dry spell that we've had and almost kind of hoping for rain. But it made Whaling City kind of fun to play because it was firm and fast. The greens are hard. They're kind of small. The bunkers stink out loud. I mean, the amount of rocks and pebbles. I was in a couple bunkers. Like, I don't mind bunkers being hazards, but like when they're not cared for, it just makes it not that much fun. And when you've got like big, I'm not talking just pebbles, I'm talking like pretty big stones in bunkers. I don't know. It could have been better there as well. But this is another place. Someone DM'd me on Instagram just saying like, man, if you had someone with a ton of money come in and just spruce up the whole place, it could be really good. It's like 6,800 yards from the tips. But what I've seen, or what I saw, and what I learned from the people that I was playing with who play there on the regular or pretty regularly, any sort of rain destroys the place. It's pretty low lying. It's kind of in a bowl. It's bordered by a landfill and two kind of very busy roads. And so it's kind of hemmed in. It calls itself a Donald Ross creation, which is the only place I've seen. It's on the front of their scorecard. Donald Ross apparently did some work or did some drawings in the late 1940s for the front nine. Donald Ross died in 1948, and this golf course opened in 1947. So we're talking like maybe one of the last things that Ross did on that front nine. There's a couple, you can see some hints of Ross. The ninth green is certainly one that I looked at and thought like, that's a Donald Ross green, just the approach shot, the way it was built. But if it's as bad as they were saying when it rains, with the low-lying nature of the course, it plays through wetlands. You're playing over some watery spots. Walking down the 14th fairway, there were just all of these drainage lines that I'm sure are just there to get the water off the golf course. And it doesn't seem like it does a great job when it's wet. When it's firm and fast, it was challenging. The tee shots are hard. It's super narrow. The greens are really small. Some of them have a lot of slope to them. So it's a better golf course than I thought it was going to be. It was a harder golf course than I thought it was going to be. And it was kind of a more enjoyable experience than I thought it was going to be. To be honest, my expectations were pretty low. The routing is a little bit funny. And here is one place where you could change the routing a little bit to make life a little different and have the golf course actually finish up near the clubhouse. The first, second, and third holes kind of run as a triangle, and you come back to the clubhouse at the third green, and you play kind of around the driving range there on 1, 2, 3. And then 4, basically through 18, are all off in a separate part of the golf course that you could start the round on the 4th tee, which would then be the first tee, and then make 1, 2, and 3 as it's currently routed, the 16th, 17th, and 18th holes. Could be interesting. The problem is you'd have a really long walk from 15 to 16. It's also kind of bummed, like no water on the golf course. The routing right now doesn't bring you back to the clubhouse. You play 9, you go to 10. Going up to the clubhouse, you're going way out of your way. So if you're worried about slowing people up behind you or just trying to get the round done, there's nowhere to get food. There's no water on the golf course. So that's kind of one other thing as far as potential goes for the experience there, is like a little halfway house or setting up a golf cart with some food and drinks would also help. And that would be like a really simple fix for people, especially we played on like a 75-degree day in November. It was crazy, and it would have been nice to have like some water jugs out or anything to just eat and drink on the round. You can't pack up enough water in your golf bag for 18 holes. So you got to kind of have some place to refill. So that was kind of a bummer. But Whaling City, if it's a dry spell next fall, it's also open in the winter, throughout the winter. Go check out Whaling City. A lot of potential in a lot of different ways. Just could be the conditioning could be a little better, and then just the drainage and making sure rain doesn't impact the golf course too much, but tons of potential there. The last golf course I have on this list is one that is currently closed, and I'm not sure what's going to happen to it, but Elmcrest Country Club in East Longmeadow, Mass. I went out to play Great Horse last September of 2023, and I just poked around because we were staying out. We were lucky enough to stay at Great Horse for a couple nights, and I just poked around on a map to see what else is out there that I could maybe check off. Elmcrest looked great on the website, and I showed up, and it was completely neglected, derelict golf course. The clubhouse was completely closed, big red X's over it, 2 kitchen fires. If you want to, that's a story for another day, possibly. Interested to know what the hell's going on there. Little shed in the parking lot. Me and my buddy Dan were the only ones playing. We paid $20. We were told that the grass hadn't been cut, that he hoped we had a bunch of golf balls because we were going to lose golf balls if we hit it anywhere off the fairway. Even the fairway was basically like shaggy rough, and the rough was US Open cabbage. Greens were completely gone. Never really experienced anything like it before. It was like zombie land golf. But as a golf course, apparently in the 90s, and then just around pre-COVID and COVID time, it was the place to be, especially in the 90s. A lot of good players came out of there, and you can kind of see the bones of the place are very good. You know, from my experience, obviously, we were just kind of out for a walk, hitting golf shots and being okay losing golf balls. But you could see between the way the land went, the challenge of the holes, the length of the golf course, some of the shot values. There were some really good holes on the back 9, especially, and you could just see that it would be awesome. I hope that someone has the money to purchase Elmcrest and kind of build it back up into something. It would take a lot of money. The clubhouse is completely kind of gone, and we looked into the clubhouse, and it just looked like everyone had disappeared out of the blue, like the leftovers kind of situation. Beer bottles on the bar still, and just kind of a wild scene. Never seen anything like it playing golf or visiting really anywhere. But if someone had the money, I know that people have talked about like, if Great Horse could buy it and turn it into their second course, a sister course, a semi-private or whatever they wanted to do with it. It's about 6 minutes down the road from Great Horse. So that would be a cool opportunity. But just anybody out there, golf is losing golf courses. Massachusetts has lost a bunch of golf courses, or is kind of in the process of it. I know that area is pretty dense for golf, and so maybe the hunger for adding or rebuilding Elmcrest isn't really there. But man, it would be a shame if it just kind of slowly disappeared, which it seems like it's going to do. Its website right now says it's permanently closed, so it's for sale, whatever. But Elmcrest, just such a shame. The most potential out of any of these 5, and it also is just kind of on its deathbed, it sounds like. So those are 5+ Elmcrest golf courses that I think have a ton of potential, or a lot of potential. And once again, those are Butternut, Maynard Golf Course, Stow South, Ponkapoag, course number 1, and Whaling City, and then finally Elmcrest, out in East Longmeadow, Mass, out in Western Mass. So those courses, this might be something I do again if people like it. If you have a golf course that you think has a ton of potential, you can throw it in the comments on YouTube, and maybe I will collect some of those. And if I've played them, I will add them to the next video. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And we will see you next time.